The stars no longer knew them. What was once their home had become a foreign domain, patrolled by colossal steel vessels bearing no human insignia. The children of Earth, once vibrant, had been extinguished, or so it seemed, but they had merely transformed. Commander Wren stood in quiet command at the helm of the Gravern, his face a roadmap of age and relentless fury. The bridge was hushed, every crew member focused, every breath carefully controlled. Behind them were the remnants of Earth's banished offspring, hardened, disciplined, and seething. Ahead lay the Galactic Dominion, the very council that had branded humanity as unfit, uncivilized, and dangerous. The council that had exiled Earth, bombed its cities, shattered its satellites, and sworn humanity would never rise again. They were profoundly mistaken. The Dominion had anticipated annihilation. Instead, they reaped evolution. Years of brutal survival in the outer dark, beyond known space, where machines faltered and apex predators stalked the void. Their humanity learned not merely to endure but to dominate. They tore apart every entity that dared to cross their path. They forged a new fleet from the husks of their vanquishers. They redefined their very essence in the crucible of rage. And Wren recalled the tales passed down from his grandfather. The earth that once sang, the betrayal that erupted in 1,000 blinding lights, the screams of the final conflict. His own father had perished, scavenging components from a Dominion outpost deep within the dead zone. Wren himself hadn't glimpsed a starport until he was 20. But what he had witnessed, what every soul in his fleet had witnessed, was more than enough to obliterate any lingering hope of peace. "Coordinates locked," stated Garen, his second in command, his voice devoid of warmth. All of their voices were. Wren nodded. "Take us in. Full cloak, and jam every signal on that moon. No witnesses. They weren't there to negotiate. There would be no peace talks. The Dominion had buried the truth of their atrocities against Earth, rewriting history to portray humans as a primitive scourge. For 3 millennia, they had lived complacently behind their self-serving laws and alliances. But Earth had returned, and she brought with her consuming fire. Their initial target was Valor Station, a minor Dominion trade moon, swollen with diplomats, traders, and arrogant functionaries. It held no military significance, but that wasn't the objective. This was about forcing them to remember, to instill in them a paralyzing fear. The Gravern glided through orbit like a specter, silent, unseen, patient. Wren stood before the observation panel as the moon's blue-gray surface rotated beneath them. He didn't blink, he didn't breathe deeply, he simply waited. Sir Garen's voice cut through the silence. "Detonation sequence ready. Just give the word." Wren's gaze remained fixed. On the moon, do it, and then, fire. No warnings, no evacuation. Just a blinding, furious, and utterly final light. Buildings disintegrated. Towers crumpled like paper. Screams echoed through intercepted communications for a mere 10 seconds before the station's grid went dark. Then, silence. Wren turned to his crew. "They forgot who we were. Let's remind them." The message was simple. Earth was no longer the forgotten homeworld. Earth was the storm. The next target was already queued, and this time, it was purely military. News of Valor's destruction spread across the galaxy like a contagion. The Dominion, once secure in its unchallenged authority, now trembled under the weight of something it had never conceived possible: vengeance from a spectral species. There were no official broadcasts, no confirmed footage, only scattered fragments of intercepted distress calls, and a single cryptic transmission captured by a listening post before the moon went silent. Earth remembers. Aboard the atmosphere was not celebratory, it was grim, focused. The crew didn't cheer, didn't exchange high fives like in ancient war footage. They simply rearmed, reloaded, and awaited the next command. Wren sat alone in his command chamber, studying a holographic map of the old Earth system. He hadn't been there, none of them had, but they all knew it by blood. The coordinates were etched into every crewman's skin since childhood, seared into them during the Rite of Awakening, symbol of what had been stolen and what must be reclaimed. He looked at the flickering symbol marking the outer fringe of Dominion space, or Denus Prime, a former Earth colony before the betrayal. It was now one of the Dominion's high command military stations, a formidable fortress. It also housed the Central Archives, the place where humanity's erasure had been meticulously orchestrated and concealed from history. It was the perfect next target. Garen entered without knocking. No one needed permission anymore. "Command is ready." The fleets realigned. Scout ships returned. No major defense around Ordinis Prime. They think it's untouchable. Wren's jaw flexed. "Good. Let's prove them wrong again." Garen hesitated, then stepped forward, lowering his voice. "We've started getting hails from Dominion vessels, Wren. Not all of them want to fight. Some are trying to talk. They're scared." Wren finally turned. His eyes, colder than deep space, met Garen's. "Were they scared when they bombed our cradles? When they choked Earth's orbit with mines and let her children suffocate?" "No," Garen said quietly. "Then they don't get to speak now. Not until they bleed." Wren stood, motioning toward the map. "We hit Ordinus, we seized their archives. Then, we broadcast the truth to the entire Dominion, every planet. Every species, every smug little bureaucrat who signed off on our extinction. We remind them that we're not just alive, we're angry. The bridge hummed with a low murmur as Ren returned. On the main screen, Ordinus loomed like a sleeping leviathan, a steel monstrosity enveloped in defense satellites and flanked by a modest fleet of automated gunships. Target acquired. The weapons officer confirmed. We're still cloaked. No detection yet. Ren glanced around the bridge. Every man there had lost something. A father, a brother, a piece of their own body. They were carved by loss, shaped by betrayal, and now sharpened into a weapon. He raised his voice, calm but burning with resolve. For 3,000 years, we've lived with a lie shoved down our throats that we were animals, that we deserved extinction, that Earth was a failed experiment. But we didn't die. We evolved. We forged an army from wreckage. We trained our sons in silence, and now we return. Not to ask, not to explain, but to take. No forgiveness, no mercy, only fire. Uncloak, he ordered, and burn it down. The Gravern shimmered into view just beyond the station's sensor range, followed by two flanking warships, the Ashdrift and the Judicator. Within seconds, the Dominion command flared with panic. Automated messages flooded. Comes unknown vessels. Identify yourselves. Ren muted them. Launch long-range missiles. Target their solar relay and outer defenses. A volley of cerulean fire projectiles screamed into the void, streaking across the blackness like incandescent spears. The initial barrage struck with brutal precision, severing power to the station's outer rings. Satellites erupted like pyrotechnics. Defense systems stuttered, disoriented by the sudden assault. Enemies scrambling fighters, Garen said, watching the tactical feed. They're too slow. Ren didn't smile. He didn't need to. Send the drones. Jam their fighters. No one leaves orbit. Hundreds of Black Hunter drones launched from the Judicator, moving like insects with the minds of wolves. They swarmed the outgoing Dominion crafts, disabling engines, rupturing cockpits, boarding when necessary. No shots fired, just silent, surgical destruction. Inside Ordinus, panic descended into utter chaos. And above it all, Earth's flag blazed. Onto every Dominion screen, a black background, a red world at the center, and 3 stark words beneath it. We remember everything. Ren's team boarded the crippled station within 30 minutes. Resistance was minimal. Shock had shattered their discipline. Garen and a dozen soldiers swept the main archive floor while Ren proceeded directly to the data vault. It was there that he saw it. Row after row of sealed history files, confidential, restricted, archived under Dominion Code Black. Humanity's true story. The betrayals, the orders to sterilize Earth's atmosphere, the containment plan that murdered billions, all of it hidden from the galactic public beneath layers of bureaucracy. Ren opened the files. His hands didn't tremble. He read every line, every cold, clinical description of his people's extermination, and with each word, the fire within him intensified. They erased us like we were insects. Garen whispered behind him. No, Ren said, his voice low. Insects are studied. We were garbage to them. A failed pet project. He looked up at the camera drone hovering nearby. Transmit it all. Every file, every report, to every inhabited system under Dominion control. Translate it to every native language. I want the whole galaxy to see what they did. The crew executed the command. Across the stars, billions watched in horror as the truth streamed across screens and datapads. Entire species learned of Earth's calculated execution, the lies they'd been fed. Protests erupted, and violence followed. Dominion command scrambled to contain the fallout, but it was too late. The galaxy knew now, and the ghosts of Earth were no longer ghosts. They were soldiers. Back on Ordinus, Ren walked through the hallways of a station that had once condemned his people. Now it was silent, broken, and his. But he knew this was only the beginning. As they departed, Garen walked beside him. We've started getting responses. Smaller systems are breaking away from the Dominion. They want to talk. They want to ally. Ren looked at him, eyes like steel. They want safety. They're afraid we'll turn their worlds to ash. Will we? Garen asked. Ren didn't answer at first. Then he said quietly, depends if they were part of the slaughter. The stars opened before them as the Gravern slipped into jump. There were more targets, and Earth was just getting started. They didn't expect to be feared this much. This quickly. After the broadcast from Ordinus Prime, entire sectors plunged into pandemonium. The Dominion's meticulously constructed image of order crumbled like dry bone. Civilian unrest, planetary riots, and deserters flooded neutral systems. It all began the moment the first file hit the network. For centuries, the galaxy had been taught that Earth fell because it was volatile, primitive, dangerous, but what the files revealed painted a different picture. A civilization betrayed not because it was savage, but because it was becoming too powerful, too independent, a threat to the established balance of control. Now, that forgotten civilization was back, and it wasn't interested in peace talks. On the Gravern, the command deck was dark, just as Ren preferred it. Only the pale glow of star maps and flickering mission data illuminated the space, like fireflies. In a cavern, Ren stood at the central display, watching system after system blink red. Dominion headquarters hadn't responded yet, not directly, but their silence only confirmed their dread. He knew what they were doing, gathering, fortifying, planning a counterattack once they deciphered the true strength of humanity's forces. But that was their critical error. They believed Earth's vengeance was confined to a single fleet. They failed to grasp the sheer scale. Garen stepped onto the deck, his eyes fixed on the display. Another message just came in from the Beltheri Confederation. They've officially seceded from the Dominion. They're claiming neutrality. Ren didn't even look at him. And their reason? They say they didn't know what the Dominion did to Earth. They want to avoid conflict. Ren's lips curled into something. That wasn't quite a smile. Everyone wants to avoid conflict until the war finds their doorstep. He turned to face Garen. Do they have Dominion relay stations on their moons? Yes, several active military support platforms too, but they're offering to dismantle them in good faith. Ren shook his head. Too late for good faith. Garen remained silent. No one on the Gravern argued anymore. Not after Ordine. Ren pointed at the hologram of the Beltheri sector. We hit their central platform. Non-lethal strikes. Just enough to send a message. Let them live in fear like we did. Let them taste what betrayal breeds. A moment passed. Garen nodded. Orders were given, the fleet moved. But even as the Gravern powered toward its next target, Ren found his mind drifting backward. Not to Earth, not to the betrayal, but to something worse. Something no archive held. He remembered the first time he killed a man. It wasn't on a battlefield. It wasn't under orders. He had been 16. His father had sent him on a scavenging run in the abandoned wrecks of a dead colony ship buried in the ice fields of Thalos 9. It was supposed to be routine, but another tribe had beaten him, their feral survivors, descendants of exiled criminals, the kind of people who had lost language but remembered how to slit a throat. Ren had found the boy, probably no older than 12, trying to steal their food cache. The kid hadn't even pulled a weapon, just stared at Ren with wild sunken eyes, terrified and hungry. Ren didn't hesitate. One shot, right between the eyes. He'd never forgotten the sound of the body hitting the metal floor, or the way the blood steamed in the cold. He learned that day what survival meant, what it cost. That's why he felt nothing now. Not for the Dominion, not for their trembling allies, not for their apologies. Sir, came a voice through the com. Target acquired. Belari, Platform 1, is in sight. Awaiting strike authorization. Ren stared at the screen, then gave the nod. Disable it, but make it messy. A series of pulses launched from the ash drift, striking the relay's stabilizers. The structure wobbled in orbit, alarms screaming as escape pods jettisoned in every direction. No one died this time, but every Beltheri official knew what could have happened, and more importantly, they knew who held the power now. Later, on the command deck, Garen approached with a data slate. We're getting a pattern, Ren. Not just fierce underground human colonies we didn't even know survived are coming out of hiding. Old tech caches, weapon prototypes, entire asteroid militias declaring loyalty to the Sol Reclamation Front. Ren raised an eyebrow. Sol Reclamation. That's what they're calling us now, across the net. We didn't name it. Ren looked away. Doesn't matter what they call us. We're not here to reclaim. We're here to burn everything that tried to erase us. He paused, then added, but we'll use them. Every loyal planet, every hidden cell. If they want to fight under our banner, we let them. Just make sure they understand we're not liberators, we're executioners. But not everyone was aligning out of fear or loyalty. Later that cycle, as the fleet refueled near a harvested gas giant, an encrypted message arrived from deep Dominion territory. No call sign, no official stamp, just one line. I remember Earth. Ren read it 3 times. Then sent a trace command through the fleet AI. The signal came from a Dominion war vessel, Jalit's Blade, one of their elite ships. A message like that could mean only one of 2 things. Someone inside was sympathetic, or it was a trap. Either way, he wasn't ignoring it. Root us, Ren ordered. We're intercepting. When the Gravern dropped into silent orbit near the Jalit's Blade, there was no hostile greeting, no alarm, just silence. Ren boarded with a hand-picked team, each one armed and ready. The interior of the ship was dim, sterile Dominion to the core. But the man waiting for them in the command chamber was not. He stood tall, gray at the temples, uniform ragged and worn. His eyes, though human, old human. Ren stared at him. Name. The man's voice was steady. Colonel Iran Valen. I was born on New Karth, Sector Delta 17. My grandfather died fighting for Earth. My father hid our lineage. I served the Dominion for 30 years, but I never forgot where I came from. Ren studied him, unmoving. Why now? Because they're going to retaliate hard. They're gathering everything, and they'll hit your supply lines first. You think you've scared them? You've enraged them. They won't stop now. Not until they wipe every trace of you again. Garen stepped forward, skeptical. And why tell us you could have stayed safe? Valen smiled grimly. I'm not interested in safety. I'm interested in justice. Ren finally nodded. You're going to feed us every detail of their movements, every fleet path, every weak point. And in return, I don't want anything. Valen interrupted. I just want to be on the right side of history. Ren almost respected him. Almost. But trust was a luxury Earth didn't afford anymore. Fine, he said. You're coming with us. You'll be watched every second. Valen didn't flinch, wouldn't expect less. As they left Jalet's blade, Ren gave the order to strip the vessel's core drives, leave the shell, let the Dominion find their empty ship and wonder. Back aboard the Graver and Ren stood at the window, watching stars slide past. They were building something now, not just vengeance, but momentum, a movement, a storm. But it still wasn't enough, because he knew where they had to go next. Not just the Dominion's military heart, but the place where the first lie was born, the Citadel of Harmony, the galactic capital, the center of propaganda, the symbol of the lie that Earth was dead, dangerous, and forgotten. Ren whispered the name like a curse, and then he gave the order that would ignite the war in full. Prepare the fleet. We take the Citadel next. The Citadel of Harmony wasn't just a planet. It was a symbol, the gleaming capital of the galactic. Dominion floated like a crown jewel in the Meritus system, a pristine world surrounded by artificial rings. Its surface a patchwork of palatial districts, military academies, and governance towers that scraped the upper atmosphere. It was the birthplace of the lies, where declarations of Earth's extermination had been signed in gold and broadcast with celebration. The same halls that once echoed with speeches branding humans as a threat to civilization now sat at the top of humanity's hit list, and Ren had no intention of leaving it standing. Inside the Graver, the War Council gathered for the first time since the fleet had grown. 5 warships now flanked them, not all built by human hands. Some were captured, others donated by ex-Dominion officers who no longer wanted blood on their hands. The movement was spreading, but Ren didn't care about popularity. He cared about fear. Fear worked faster than ideology. It made people obey. Colonel Valen stood at the holotable, the Citadel's schematics rotating slowly in the air. We hit this wrong, and we lose everything. The Citadel isn't just a capital, it's a fortress. No one's breached it in 9 centuries. Ren didn't blink. No one's been us. Valen's finger traced a path along the southern hemisphere. There's one entry, through the subterranean orbital transfer station, outdated tech, barely used anymore, but it's shielded from orbital scans. If we drop a squad through the lower layers, hit the communications core, we can blind them long enough to breach the shield gates. Garen crossed his arms. We're sending men into that hellhole on foot? Ren cut in. We're not sending anyone. I'll lead that team myself. Valen raised an eyebrow. You? That's reckless. Ren stepped closer. It's personal. This place erased my bloodline from history. Every stone there was laid on the lie that Earth deserved to die. I want to walk through its halls with fire in my hands. Silence. Then Garen sighed. Then I'm going with you. The plan was simple, on paper, suicide in practice. 3 teams, Alpha Team Ren, Garen, and 6 elite soldiers would breach the subterranean access port and move through the abandoned lower city, long since forgotten by the rich and powerful. Their goal? Reach the communications relay and shut down planetary comms. Bravo Team would strike the orbital defense towers the moment the signal dropped, and Charlie Team, consisting of 2 warships and drone fleets, would breach the main dome and deliver the final blow. Timing would be everything. 12 hours later, the operation was underway. The descent through the transfer tunnels was brutal, thick with centuries of dust, mildew, and decay. Rats skittered in the shadows, and the only light came from helmet, beams, and flickering half-dead panels. The scent of rust and old blood clung to the walls like a warning. They moved in silence, their boots splashing in old chemical runoff. Ren's voice was low over the comms. This place smells like history. They don't want remembered. Garen kept his rifle steady. Probably a lot of bones down here. They reached the first barrier, a sealed vault door covered in old Dominion insignia. Ren looked at it, then raised his gauntlet and activated the charge. The explosion was surgical. Beyond the smoke, a hall opened up, lined with once grand statues, now shattered and headless. Names had been scrubbed from Plaxel, evidence of the old worlds, Earth and her allies, erased like a failed experiment. Ren walked past them without slowing. They encountered their first resistance near the relay corridor. Automated drones, old models, but lethal. The firefight was tight, brutal, and fast. 2 of Ren's men dropped before the others cleared the corridor in a storm of gunfire and flashbangs. No one paused. They reached the relay. Ren placed the hack module into the port and waited. Seconds ticked. Signal cut, said the tech beside him. They are blind. Ren grinned. Time to bring down their heaven. High above, the second phase erupted. The Ashdrift Adjudicator launched a brutal barrage on the orbital towers. The towers returned fire, but their tracking was delayed. Missiles soared past, slamming into civilian towers by accident. Fires spread across the upper levels of the Citadel dome. Sirens wailed. Civilians screamed. Elites tried to flee in personal crafts. Many of them didn't make it. Inside the lower city, Ren led his team upward. They emerged into a chaos of evacuation routes, overwhelmed security forces, and burning skies. And yet Ren felt nothing. These were the architects of Earth's extinction. These were the same people who danced in golden halls while billions burned. As they pushed toward the Hall of Judicars, the site where the extinction decree had been signed, more soldiers flooded the plaza. A full unit blocked their path, shouting commands in Dominion tongue. Ren didn't stop. "Drop your weapons," one barked. Ren raised his rifle and dropped every single one of them with 6 precise bursts. The team surged forward, bullets carving paths through stone and steel, bodies fell, statues cracked. Blood soaked the once pristine white steps of the hall. And then, finally, they were in. The Hall of Judicars was massive. Vaulted ceilings, marble floors, empty thrones. Ren walked to the center, boots leaving bloody prints, and activated his transmitter. His face appeared on every working screen across the Citadel, across Dominion space, across the stars. "This is Commander Ren of Earth. You remember us as a myth, as a mistake. You were taught that we were violent, unfit, dangerous. You were taught wrong. You killed our world. You turned your backs, while Earth was turned to ash. You cheered. Now we return. Not for peace, not for apologies. We return." As fire, he crushed the throne of the High Chancellor with a single pulse grenade. Outside, as the final defense towers collapsed and the dome cracked open to vacuum, the message was clear. The Citadel had fallen. Ren stood in the ruin, surrounded by fire and corpses, and for the first time since this war began, he smiled. But he knew better than to believe this was the end. The Dominion hadn't fallen. It had just been humiliated, and soon, it would lash back with everything it had left. Ren turned to Garen. "Prepare the defenses. They'll come for us now." Garen nodded. "Let them." The smoke hadn't even cleared from the broken towers of the Citadel when the retaliation began. Across Dominion space, emergency transmissions crackled to life. The High Command, disgraced, cornered, but not destroyed, activated its final directive: purge the insurgents. No prisoners. That wasn't an order, it was a promise. Ren stood in the ruins of the Hall of Judicars, surrounded by crumbled stone and shattered glass. The galaxy had watched as he burned the heart of the Dominion on live broadcast. He hadn't flinched, hadn't asked for peace. He'd stared into the eyes of every leader, every bureaucrat, every loyal citizen, and told them the truth. They were next. But truth comes with consequences. Now it was their turn to fight back. It started with precision strikes. One of the human-allied outposts in the Keldry's belt, vaporized within minutes by a Dominion fleet that didn't stop to identify targets. Civilians, fighters, children, all reduced to dust. Then came the skirmishes. Hit squads sent into neutral territories where humans had gathered. Assassinations, bombings, silent killings meant to sow fear. The message was simple: you are not safe. Back aboard the Gravern, the War Council reconvened. This time, the air was heavier. The taste of blood hadn't yet left their mouths, but now the stench of consequence filled the room. Valen placed a datapad on the table. They're activating their oldest weapons, war-class dreadnoughts. Things that haven't moved in centuries. The kind they kept in reserve in case of species-level extinction threats. Ren looked over the display. The ships were massive. Floating cities with nuclear cores, AI command matrices, and shields that could withstand a solar flare. "So they're treating us like a plague again," Garen muttered. "No," Ren said flatly. "They're afraid. That's why they're overreacting. They know we're not just a threat. We're a mirror. We remind them what they did, and they can't stand it." Valen shook his head. "This isn't fear. This is survival instinct. They'll throw everything they have. Entire sectors will burn. They'd rather destroy the stars than let you finish what you started." A silence followed. Ren stared at the star map, fingers tightening around the edge of the table. "Then let's give them something to chase." He tapped the map, highlighting a system just inside neutral space. Turloon 9, once a mining colony, now a growing human hub, unofficial capital of the uprising. If the Dominion wanted a decisive strike, that's where they'd hit next. "We evacuate the civilians, fortify every position, bury munitions, set traps in orbit. If they want blood, they'll get it on our terms." Garen raised a brow. "We stand and fight." Ren nodded. "No more running, no more shadow strikes. We face them head-on, and we show the galaxy what Earth's sons do when cornered." Preparation began. Instantly, the fleet moved to Turloon 9 within 6 cycles. Orbital mines were deployed. Defense satellites, stolen and reprogrammed, were positioned like spears. Human engineers worked day and night, welding bunkers, building artillery emplacements, training volunteers in the frozen rock fields. Every man, woman, and child who could hold a weapon was armed. No exceptions. This wasn't a military base. It was a last stand. As the final supply shuttle landed, Garen found Ren staring into the distance atop a ridge overlooking the colony's skeletal skyline. "Do you ever think it would come to this?" Garen asked. Ren didn't answer right away. "I thought we'd die in silence," he said at last. "Out there in the dark, forgotten. At least now we die, remembered." Garen scoffed. "Not dying yet." "You're right," Ren said. "But we might not win either. Not in the way people expect. Victory isn't survival, it's legacy." He turned to Garen. "They want to erase us again, but this time, we make it impossible. Even if they kill every last one of us, they won't be able to forget." Because we'll carve our memory into the stars with fire. 3 days later, the Dominion arrived. They didn't send scouts. They sent everything. 3 dreadnoughts, 5 carrier-class warships, dozens of cruisers, swarms of automated drone wings. The sky above Turloon 9 went black with steel. Civilians watched from their shelters as sirens screamed. Fighters launched from human ships. The battle began before the Dominion even spoke a word. Ren stood in the command chamber of the Grot, eyes locked on the carnage unfolding in orbit. Redirect drones to flank their carrier wing, he ordered. Deploy EMP bursts across Grid 3A. Disrupt their missile locks already on it, Garen said, sweat on his brow. The first Dominion cruiser breached the orbital defense ring, then exploded as it hit a hidden mine cluster. A cheer erupted from one section of the bridge. Ren didn't react. More ships followed, hammering the surface with plasma barrages. Shields cracked, mountains turned to ash, but the human fleet held. For hours the battle raged steel against steel, mind against machine. Every time the Dominion adapted, Ren changed tactics. Every time they pushed, he pulled them into another trap. But even the best defense bleeds. By the 6th hour, 2 human ships were gone. Entire districts of Turloon 9 were flattened. Medical shuttles screamed through smoke-filled skies, trying to evacuate the wounded before the next strike hit. Ren paced the bridge, jaw clenched. We need to take one of their dreadnoughts out now, Valen spoke from the console. I've studied their patterns. One of them, the Vexillor, is overcommitted on its broadside barrages. Its flank is exposed between rotations. Ren didn't hesitate. Then we cut its heart out. He selected the Captain Thorne, I need a suicide run. There was no hesitation on the other end. Yes, Commander. The Judicator broke formation, engines at full burn, weapons dark to hide its profile. It slipped beneath the Dominion formation like a shadow beneath a sleeping beast. The Vexillor didn't notice until it was too late. The Judicator detonated its core inside the Dreadnought's engine trench. The explosion split the sky. 2 ships gone, thousands dead. But the tide shifted. The Dominion faltered, and Ren seized it. All remaining ships, forward. Push, break their line. The fleet surged, adrenaline and vengeance pushing them beyond exhaustion. One after another, Dominion ships fell back, shields flickering, captains screaming intercoms. By the 12th hour, they retreated, what was left of them. The sky cleared, smoke lifted, Turloon 9 still stood. But victory wasn't joy, it was silence. Ashes, rubble, screams of the dying. Ren walked through the remains of Sector 7, what used to be a market district. Now it was dust, strewn with shattered armor, broken weapons, and bodies. He knelt beside a child, no older than 8, dead, clutching a rusted toy. He didn't cry, he didn't speak. He just stood and kept walking. Later, in the command room, Garen approached. We did it. We beat them. Ren didn't respond. They'll come again, he finally said. Garen nodded. Then we'll be ready again. Ren stared into the stars. No. Next time we take the fight to them, because now, it wasn't about survival. It was about ending the Dominion forever. There was a rhythm to war. Fire, silence, ash, then fire again. But what came after Turloon 9 wasn't rhythm. It was escalation. Humanity had held the line for the first time in 3,000 years. They didn't just survive. They repelled the strongest force the galaxy had to offer. The message was burned into every Dominion system, whether they wanted to hear it or not. Earth's vengeance wasn't a passing storm. It was a campaign, and the next phase had begun. Ren stood before the war table again, his hands resting on the edge like they were welded there. His uniform was scorched, his face still smudged with dust from Sector 7. He hadn't slept since the battle ended, but his mind had never been clearer. Enough waiting, he said. We go to them now. Garen nodded. You want targets? I already have one. He tapped the star chart, zooming in on a cluster of deep space systems, known as the Red Hulls, the Dominion's industrial belt. Shipyards, weapons factories, drone swarms in production. You cut a snake by the tail, it regrows, Ren growled. You burn the nest, it stays dead. Valen leaned in, his face grim. Hitting the Red Hulls means civilian losses, thousands of workers, families. Ren's gaze didn't flicker. They built the weapons that bombed our cradles. They fueled the ships that killed our children. You think those hands are clean? Silence. Then Garen, they're not. Let's do it. The Gravern jumped. First, what followed wasn't a strike, it was a purge. 3 human warships dropped into Red Hall's space, cloaked and ready. The Dominion had fortified the factories, but not nearly enough. They didn't believe humanity would come to them this soon. Arrogance was a beautiful weakness. The attack began, with targeted EMPs, frying station relays and shutting down orbital defenses. Then came the railguns, precision strikes that punched through steel like it was paper. Station 17 collapsed in on itself. Docking bays disintegrated in fireballs. Security ships scrambled to respond, only to be torn apart by hunter drones already lying in wait inside the factories. Workers screamed, ran, some begged. Ren's voice echoed through their systems as the buildings burned. You built the weapons that killed us, now burn with them. For 2 straight hours, The red halls bled, and then they were gone. Not just crippled or millions of tons of infrastructure vaporized. Hundreds of Dominion fleet builders lost. And across every Dominion-aligned system, panic set in. Because this wasn't just rebellion anymore. It was extermination. Their extermination. In the aftermath, Ren walked the halls of the Gravern, watching young soldiers celebrate. Some danced, some cried, others stared at the floor, quiet with guilt. He didn't stop them. They had earned it, for now. But deep inside, he knew what was coming next. The Dominion had no choice now. They couldn't just retaliate. They had to annihilate, and they would try. Valen entered the observation deck, watching the burning remains of the red halls twinkle like dying stars. We just erased 10% of their fleet production capacity in a single day. Ren didn't look at him. Not enough, Valen nodded. I know, but we're making them bleed. Ren's voice dropped. They'll call us terrorists now, butchers, murderers. Of the innocent they already do. Ren finally turned. And what do you think we are? Valen didn't flinch. We're what they made us. Ren appreciated the honesty. That night, he reviewed a transmission intercepted from Dominion High Command. The language was calm, bureaucratic, precise, cold. All human systems are to be reclassified as higher-risk extinction zones. Full military cleansing authorized. No negotiations, no peace. Just extermination. Again. Ren stared at the screen for a long time, then issued his next command. Evacuate all outer colonies. Send every able body to the Central Fleet. We're collapsing back to the core. Garen frowned. You planning to draw them in? No, Ren said. I'm planning to force them into overreach. They didn't know Earth's full strength yet. The outer cells, the hidden colonies, the rogue weapons platforms drifting in asteroid belts, these were secrets the Dominion hadn't uncovered, and Ren would use them. One by one, the Dominion advanced toward the trap. It started with the siege of Marion's Crest, a decoy station broadcasting fake human activity. The Dominion sent 6 cruisers. None returned. The moment they entered orbit, magnetic mines pulled them into a gravity well. Fusion cores detonated. Debris rained across empty stone. Next was Draxus 4, where a fake distress signal lured a fleet of drones into a net of pulse cannons. They fell like flies. And then came the false flag operation on Cassix, a Dominion base that suddenly lost communication after a human bombing. There was no human presence. Ren planted evidence. Corpses, even false DNA strands. The Dominion devoured it all. They redirected their fleets, spread their forces thin, chasing ghosts. That's when Ren struck real targets. Medical supply lines, fleet fueling stations, command nodes. Each time the Dominion arrived, they found only fire and silence. The galaxy began to question everything. Was the Dominion lying? Was humanity actually winning? The psychological war hit harder than the weapons. Inside the Dominion Council chambers, arguments broke out. Whole sectors refused to send ships. Some resigned, others defected. Ren watched it all from the bridge. The Dominion wasn't dying fast, but it was dying loud. Then came the unexpected. A message from a neutral zone. A single line? We want to talk. Ren froze. Garen leaned over. From who? Ren zoomed the data string. It wasn't Dominion. It wasn't Earth. It was from the Alvari Syndicate, one of the ancient observer races long thought above war. Ren stared at it. After all this blood, someone wanted to talk. He tapped the console. Open it. A face flickered to life, tall, silver-skinned eyes like molten glass. Commander Ren, the voice said, smooth and alien. We are not your enemy, but we may be your only ally. Ren narrowed his eyes. Speak. And with that, the war took a turn no one expected. The face on the screen stared at Ren with eyes that didn't blink. The Elvari were strange, almost too perfect, tall and ethereal, with metallic skin that shimmered like water and voices like wind sliding over glass. They had stayed out of the wars for millennia. No one attacked them. No one questioned them. They were observers, scientists, archivists. The galaxy whispered that even the Dominion feared pushing them too far. And now, one of them stood on Ren's screen, uninvited. I am Sornvel, he said, archivist of the Alvari Syndicate. We have watched your people return. We have watched your vengeance unfold, and we have chosen, finally, to speak. Ren didn't trust him. He didn't trust anyone outside his own blood and fire. But curiosity was a tool, and this could be something useful. You've watched? Ren asked. Is that what you did when they burned Earth? Sat in your towers and took notes while we died? Soren's face didn't change. We archived, but we did not intervene. We were bound by the Accord of Observation, a law older than your species' first cities. Convenient, Ren said coldly. Perhaps, Soren replied. But now we break that silence. Because the Dominion no longer seeks containment, they seek extinction. You are not their only target now. They have shifted, grown desperate. Their next step will burn systems that have nothing to do with your war. Ren's eyes narrowed. And you care now. We care because this war threatens everything. The stability of the galactic structure, the delicate balance we have spent eons observing. You have tilted it, Garen muttered beside him. Good, Ren ignored him. So what do you want? To give you a weapon, Soren said, his voice calm. A tool buried before your kind ever walked. Upright, hidden beneath your original homeworld. Not Earth. The first one, the one before that. This stopped Ren cold. He stared at the screen. There was no world before Earth. That's a myth. Soren smiled. Barely. Only because the Dominion ensured it stayed one. But your ancestors came from a different star. A failed experiment. Long before the Dominion rose, they found you too wild, too unpredictable. So they forced an exodus, relocated you to Earth, watched you grow. And when you proved even more dangerous, they tried to wipe you out again. The room was silent. Even Garen had nothing to say. Ren's voice was quiet. You're saying Earth wasn't the beginning? No, Soren said. It was the cage. Ren stepped forward. And this weapon? A failsafe built by the first humans before they were moved. A device capable of warping gravitational structure, destroying stars. The Dominion never found it. We did. We buried it deeper. Until now, Ren's heart pounded. He wasn't a man who believed in myths. He believed in blood and fire. But this wasn't myth. It was a legacy. Why give it to us? He asked. Because you're the only ones angry enough to use it. And just like that, the war changed again. 3 days later, the Gravern departed from known space. Their destination, VX-3, an ancient frozen planet buried in the ruins of pre-Dominion history. There were no starports, no satellites, just silence and ice, and something buried beneath it. Ren stood at the helm, watching the blue-white sphere grow larger on the view screen. This is madness, Valen said quietly. If this is real, if we dig it up, we might not just destroy the Dominion. We could break the galaxy. Ren didn't look at him. Then we finally speak their language. Landing was rough. The planet fought back blizzards, magnetic storms, seismic tremors that split the crust, as if the world itself didn't want to give up its secret. The dig team took hours to breach the ice crust. Beneath it was metal smooth, seamless, ancient. They drilled, cut, burned, until finally a hatch hissed open, and below, in a cavern of steel and light, they found it, a sphere the size of a city block, floating, humming, pulsing like a heartbeat. The walls around it were inscribed with symbols Ren had never seen. Primal, beautiful, violent. Soren's voice came through a communicator linked from orbit. You're looking at the Alpha Core, the last defense of your true ancestors. They didn't build ships, they built extinction. Ren approached it. Can it be controlled? Yes, Soren said. By blood. The sphere lit up, and everyone in the chamber stepped back, except Ren. He raised his arm, pressing his palm against the smooth metal. It didn't resist. Instead, it opened. The chamber changed. The hum grew deeper. Lights danced along the walls. A voice echoed, not from the Alvari, but from the machine itself. Biological match, confirmed. Human variant 0. Initiating awakening protocol. Ren stepped inside. What followed wasn't just a briefing. It was a memory. Implanted. Ancient. Not his, but made for him. Visions of the First War. Of humans not as victims, but conquerors. Of a race so defiant, so unpredictable, the galaxy feared what it couldn't understand. So they were hunted, relocated, manipulated, and when they resisted, they were burned. The Alpha Core was their last cry, a device capable of collapsing gravity wells, tearing star systems apart with a thought. But it had one condition. It could only be used by a descendant of the original bloodline. And that bloodline was still alive. Ren stumbled out of the machine an hour later, eyes hollow. Garen caught him. What did it show you? Ren stared at the snow outside the chamber. Who we were? He turned to the crew. Prepare the sphere for transit. We're going back to the front. Are we going to use it? Valen asked. Ren didn't answer, but he didn't have to, because now Earth had the final card, not just revenge, an endgame. And the Dominion had no idea what was coming. The stars were quieter than they should have been, as if they were holding their breath. The Gravern emerged from the darkness, flanked by the last war fleet of Earth. Behind them followed the Alpha Core, sealed in an armored chamber aboard the Vengeance Spire, a ship built around it in under 6 days, using every last resource the uprising could muster. It wasn't sleek, it wasn't beautiful, it was a weapon, a floating death sentence, forged in desperation and fury. The Dominion still held 2/3 of the galaxy, but today, Ren didn't care about the galaxy. He cared about Zephyrian Prime, the Throng World, the true capital of Dominion Command. The seat of the Chancellor, the place where Earth's extermination had been ordered. Not with fire or war, but with a single signature on a golden scroll. Ren stood at the front of the command deck as the final approach began. Beside him, Garen adjusted his armor. The lines on his face were deeper now, his eyes colder. Last run, he said. Ren nodded. No more retreats. Valen joined them, his once polished demeanor gone, his uniform blood-stained, patched, worn from campaign after campaign. I still can't believe they buried a super weapon inside your people's bones, he muttered. And we thought Earth was the mistake. Ren said nothing. He didn't need to. Every breath in his body had already been committed to the final strike. The war had consumed his soul. There was nothing left of the man who had once questioned whether humanity could survive. Now he was the one who decided who lived. The plan was simple. stage a full frontal assault on Zephyrian Prime's planetary defense ring. While the Dominion focused fire on the main fleet, Ren would deploy the Vengeance Spire, breach the command dome, and activate the Alpha Core. No warning, no diplomacy, no second chances. The Dominion had already gathered everything it had left. 3 dreadnoughts, 10 fleet carriers, hundreds of cruisers and corvettes, planetary cannons, sky-top defense system that had never been breached in its history. Ren's fleet was outnumbered 5-1, but the Dominion had never fought Earth when it was angry. The first volleys were fired before either side gave a signal. Human ships screamed toward the outer defense grid, flanked by drone swarms and kamikaze crafts rigged with pulse disruptors. The sky lit up in wild colors: blues, reds, white-hot plasma. On board the Gravern, Ren barked orders without blinking. Target the second carrier. Drive them out of formation. Keep their flanks unstable. Explosions rang through space. Entire squadrons vanished in fire. Then came the breach. The Vengeance Spire, shielded by the sacrifice of 2 destroyers, slipped through the chaos and plunged toward Zephyrian's upper dome. Inside, the Alpha Core stirred. Ren was aboard. He marched down the chamber, the low hum of the machine growing stronger with every step. It pulsed like a heartbeat, synchronized with his own, as if it had waited for this moment, for him. Garen appeared beside him, helmet under one arm. "You know what they'll call this, right?" he asked. "If we actually use it." Ren paused. "They'll call it genocide. Will it be?" Ren didn't answer, because deep down he already knew the answer. They reached the control ring, a simple interface, just a single panel. It had no buttons, no language, just a handprint. Ren pressed it, the sphere opened, and the stars changed. All around the battlefield, the Dominion ships paused. Communications across sectors stuttered. Gravity sensors failed. Internal monitors showed distortions in space that hadn't been seen since the earliest records of cosmic anomalies. From the surface of Zephyrian Prime, a dome-wide projection lit up showing one man, Ren, face battered, cold, tired, and merciless. "This is the blood of Earth speaking," he said. "You burned our cities. You buried our truth. You made a grave out of our homeworld and called it mercy. This isn't mercy." He stepped back. The Alpha Core lit up, a blinding white sphere surrounded by tendrils of antimatter energy curling into nothingness. In orbit, the Dominion's command ship began to shudder. Its admiral screamed orders. Too late. The Vengeance Spire became the eye of a storm. Space around it warped, twisted, pulled, and then silence. No explosion, just erasure. One of the dreadnoughts folded into itself and vanished, crushed like paper in an invisible hand. A fleet carrier cracked in half mid-burst. Its crew pulled screaming into the dark. The sky above Zephyrian fractured into shimmering arcs of broken physics. And then Zephyrian's planetary shield collapsed. Ren watched it from the viewfinder, not cheering, not proud, just done. He gave the final order: detonate the anchor relay. Let gravity do the rest. A pulse fired from the Alpha Core, drilling through the atmosphere and striking the center of Zephyrian's core. The planet convulsed and began to fall inward. It took 37 minutes for Zephyrian Prime to implode. The Dominion's throne world became a black mass of crushed matter and burning plasma. The last cries of its people echoed through scattered transmissions, then faded. On the Gravern, no one spoke. Not Garen, not Valen, not even the AI. Ren stood alone for the first time since this began. There were no more orders, no more strategy. It was over. He walked to the comms deck, a final message broadcast to all frequencies. To every system still breathing, Earth is no longer a memory. We are the reckoning you tried to forget. And now there is no throne to hide behind. There is no flag to wave above our ashes. We are not conquerors. We are correction. This is what happens when you erase humanity. He shut the comms off, then sat down for the first time in days and breathed. Not peace, just silence. Later, Garen found him in the observatory. The stars had gone still again. Only fragments of wreckage drifted outside. "It's done," Garen said. "They're collapsing. All Dominion systems are dark or retreating. It's really done." Ren stared ahead. "And what's left of us?" Garen didn't answer, because the truth was, not much. They had won, but they had paid for every inch of it. Now what? Garen finally asked. Ren closed his eyes. "Now we make sure no one ever forgets again, because forgetting was what started this, and Earth would never be forgotten." If you found this story of survival and vengeance as gripping as I did, please consider giving this video a like. Your engagement helps us share these powerful narratives. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on humanity's journey. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the forgotten corners of the universe. It helps a ton, and you won't want to miss what's next.